Hey guys, it's Lee Taylor. That's the 2021 Hyundai i30 hatch in an inline form, and this is a right lane review. Hyundai has been upping its game consistently over the last few years, and the latest addition to the i30 refresh is no exception. The hatch has been overshadowed by its more dramatic and performance big brother, but don't underestimate this little car one bit. Though here in Australia we don't get the full refreshed face for the 2021 i30 hatch, we still got all the technical upgrades and the interior upgrades. So inside is a ton of new features, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Under the bonnet is a 7-speed dual clutch unit mated to the uprated 1.6 turbo, a new suspension underneath the inline trim that makes it a bit more sporty, and sticky Michelins all the way around, which means this little i30 is a bit of a hot hatch apprentice. So what's the i30 like to drive? Well, it's actually quite good. It's typical Hyundai i30. The i30's been around for a long time, so it's comfortable around town, pretty sharp, easy to maneuver, easy to see out of, and it definitely feels great in the hand. And in this inline model, you actually get quite a bit of feedback. The steering is rather sharp. The new DCT gearbox, for the most part, is quite engaging. It picks up really well. It's nice and responsive. And the suspension feels firm and taut, but doesn't feel too jittery. Oftentimes, when you put a sport suspension on a hatchback, you end up something that's like driving over a grated cheese. And this isn't that bad, and it's actually quite pleasant. Some of the features on the i30, you actually get quite a lot of money. I mean, this car is just shy of $37,000 before on-roads. I think after on-roads in Victoria it becomes 40 or 41. And you get a lot of kit. And one of those pieces is the Hyundai Safety Sense, which includes cross-traffic alert, forward collision, rear collision warning, blind spot collision warning, your smart cruise system, which allows you to semi-steer while you're in the center of the lane and keep a nice distance in front, and that works both urban and on the open freeway. And all the just general tech you don't normally see in a car like this. You got a wireless charger, the heat and cool seats, which are so nice this time of year particularly, and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Really, overall, the car offers a really good value proposition, and Hyundai is really good at making their cars a value proposition. I mean, the i30 in performance, the full-fledged hot hatch, is a fantastic car for the money. It runs up there with the Type R and the Golf GTI and the Megane Trophy that we had a few weeks ago. But this car, being a step down, the niece or nephew of the i30 in performance, the i30 inline, gives you all the cool things about having a hot hatch without all the craziness of having a hot hatch. So you don't have the ridiculous amount of maintenance, the ridiculous amount of just drama that comes with a hot hatch, and you have the daily drivability. I mean, this car is incredibly comfortable on the freeway or around town, but it's still stiff enough and capable enough that you can have a blast when you're in it. And quite frankly, it's really, really good. Alright, so talking dynamics, the i30 actually has quite a bit up its sleeve. With the inline suspension, you get nice taut suspension, and it gives it quite a bit of feedback. And I've done quite a bit of work on the development and steering, and the steering gives you enough feedback for it to be interesting, and it actually is quite chuckable in the right environment. I mean, it doesn't pretend or exasperate the idea of being a hot hatch by any means. I mean, Hyundai says this is their sportier i30, but if you want a hot hatch, you want all that crazy drama, then you get the i30 in performance. And the inline is just a fun alternative. It's a cheaper alternative. And I would venture to say, as I said before, that this is probably a hot hatch apprentice, which means it doesn't need to have all the drama queen adages, pops, bangs, firing, tire squealing, crazy diff, electric damper bullshit that you see on some of the hot hatches, and they've become a bit of a clown, really. Don't get me wrong, I love a clown car. I absolutely love a fiery hot hatch. But it's also nice to get in a car like this i30 inline and feel like you're in a car that's a little bit back to basics. A good 4-cylinder turbo out front, an open diff front end, a nice taut chassis, good steering, and it feels the part. And it reminds me of what hot hatches were 10 years ago in the best way possible. So how's the interior on the i30 inline? Well, the inline means you get quite an upgrade interior. Everything looks really good. You have this beautiful inline steering wheel directly in front of you. It's a great grip. It feels good in the hand. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be, and the paddles are in a great spot as well. You also have controls for your Hyundai Safety Sense Smart Cruise right here, along with your normal multimedia displays. You have the 7-inch driver's display in front, which is partially digital and partially analog on the sides. You don't get the big pretty 10-inch one like you do in the sedan, but this will do for now. Moving throughout the cabin, the inline design is really good. I love the way everything's laid out. It's in a good spot despite the infotainment display being skewed away from the driver. That's okay. But overall, I like the style. Materials is where things get let down. Some of the bits are just a bit scratchy and cheap feeling, and it's just a bit meh. But feature-wise, you get a lot in here. Heated seats, cooled seats, park assistance, part rear view camera, drive mode since you have the DCT gearbox, a really cool looking shifter actually, a nice big panoramic sunroof, all the multimedia wood, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and my favorite thing is the red seat belts. So how's life in the back of the i30? Well, it's pretty typical i30 hatchback. I mean, there's plenty of space. It's not a ton of space, but it's enough. If you have long legs, you might be hitting your knees up against the seat in front. As usual, my seat's in my normal driving position, so 6 foot and 6 foot. You do have some storage back here, plenty of headroom, even with this panoramic sunroof, and the panoramic sunroof actually lightens everything up in the back of the cabin, so it feels nice and airy. All the red accents and stitching because it's an inline, and you have a cup holder and armrest in the middle. 2 passengers would be fine for medium to short trips. Oh, and you have red seat belts. So how's life out back in the i30 hatch? Well, it's an i30, so there's plenty of space. It's quite practical. The seats do fold down all the way flat. You have some tether points for netting or groceries or whatever. And there's a couple of cubby spaces, but there's not a ton of room underneath the road floor, mainly because there's a space saver there just in case. So what's the tops, bottoms, and final verdict on the 2021 Hyundai i30 inline hatch? Well, on the bottom is something I say about pretty much every single Hyundai, and that's the interior design is pretty good, but the materials are a bit meh. Beyond that, the DCT gearbox is a great addition, but it's a bit funky around town and sometimes flubs gear shifts at full throttle. And the fact that we don't get the beautiful front end of the new redesign is a little bit of a miss for me because you can't really tell this car is different until you open it up. So what's on top for the i30 hatch? Well, it's a fantastic value proposition. I mean, under 40 grand for this car, and that's a lot of kit. Not to mention its dynamics are really, really good. It's quite agile on the road, it feels sporty, it's fun to drive, and it reminds me of a Mark 6 GTI, which is pretty high praise for a non-performance hatchback. So what's my final verdict on the 2021 i30 inline hatch? Well, I think it's one of the best cars I've driven so far, and it's a fantastic package, particularly in 2021. It's great to drive, it's easy to live with, it's super comfortable, and it's really affordable. And it gives you all those hot hatch bits and pieces that you really, really want without compromising for something that's a bit too harsh. So if you want a car you can live with every single day, it won't jitter your teeth out, and you can still have some fun with, check out the i30 inline.